Ni'oa Folau Joel Amosa is a man of many harmonies. He's a celebrated baritone and Lexus Songquest winner, a community leader at ASB, a CrossFit coach, a weightlifter, and a family man. I'm André Chumko, and on today's episode of Articulate, you may notice that we're in a new filming location. But while the studio may have changed, the good vibes are the same. In my chat with Joel, we'll explore how he balances all his worlds at once, and what it means to live a life in rhythm with so many different moving parts. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, Joel.
Thank you for having me.
It's so lovely to have you here. I guess a good place to start, I wanted to ask, you inhabit so many different worlds, from the stage to the gym to the boardroom and even your family home.
Mm-hmm.
What does harmony look like in daily life for you?
That's a really good question, and it's a hard one to answer. Harmony is, in the simplest form, is when it all just ticks, and it's a good routine. And if something falls out of place, then it sort of has a snowball effect and sort of impacts everything else. But yeah, it's one thing is there's not enough hours in the day, and then secondly, what you can do in the 24-hour spot is exactly what we can do. So I'm fortunate to have a wife who knows the music industry and the business, and also does a lot with the kids, and also allows me to express my creative side, go do the mahi with my ASB side, go coach, and the mental well-being side as well. And then when we can swap roles, we absolutely just do swap over, and that's not always harmonious, but we always aim to be in a good routine.
What about, do you find the discipline of weightlifting complements your training as an opera singer, and vice versa a little bit?
Yes, 100%. And I've only brought this to life in the last maybe year or so, because I've realized how closely related they are. As a good example would be for weightlifting, and clean and jerk and a snatch are the two main movements. And in singing, depending on what voice type you are, the parallels between the two crafts are so similar. You need good technique, you need to practice, it's repetitive, and then the performing side, you're on a stage, it's very individual, so you're putting yourself out there, it can be quite vulnerable. So there's lots of parallels, and I draw on a lot of what works in the weightlifting space for me, being disciplined, to apply that to the singing space as well.
I also wanted to ask, you touched on there the more physical demands of opera, how your athletic training and weightlifting supports the stamina for a show, so from the rehearsal all the way through to a performance.
My singing teacher would always say that singers, opera singers or musicians, are athletes in their own right, and it took a while for me to let that swallow, because I just always separated sport and performing arts. But in actual fact, absolutely, just to your question, to be vocally fit and healthy, like you want to be in your best when you go and perform on stage, or when you practice, you want to practice well. And if you were to flip it upside down in the gym world or the fitness space, no one really wants to get out of bed when you've got a cold or a flu, or you're really down and out. So they work hand in hand together. You feel physically fit while being fit, then mentally as well. When you're singing, you feel really good when you hit those high notes, or you sing those really decent low notes. It all feels really well interconnected. It just takes time. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is no one gets fit overnight. So it's just a real long slog. And again, it's just, I think they go hand in hand really well.
What about on the flip side, what learnings and lessons from opera influence how you approach coaching or leading people in the fitness world, or even in banking at ASB?
You wouldn't think there were many, or maybe you do, but from my experience, confidence, public speaking, the ability to stand in front of many, many people, and even if it's not many, it's sometimes my coaching classes 4:30 in the morning is about 18 tops, 18 to 20 who show up, and some of them it's their first time. So from the performing arts space, given the experience of learning and unlearning, you can apply that to teaching someone for the first time how to move with a barbell, or just a nice way to articulate instructions. And I think, not that we do, but there's so many ways to say the same thing language-wise. We've probably all had many teachers who have taught biology or maths, and they've all got different styles. And I'd probably apply that in that performing arts with singing in German, French, Italian, English. You sort of get a knack for saying the same thing in a different way, because what makes you tick might be different to someone else. And so it's nice when you see the penny drop and then you sort of figure out how people work.
And our core question today is, how do we harmonize the different roles we carry without losing the essential rhythm that defines us? What's your response to that?
I love that question. And I'm in an iron on, what it means to me as a person. And I think deep down, I feel being New Zealand-born Samoan for a start, I hold a deep connection to my grandparents, my genealogy, my heritage, and I feel like being able to express that wholeheartedly and be comfortable within my own skin in a Kiwi context, New Zealand, with many other cultures, just being in a position to stand up and be proud of that, and the hopes that it's like another snowball effect that others in a similar situation, New Zealand-born Pasifika, New Zealand-born, other cultures also feel the same. And I guess I went to a really, back in the 90s, a Palangi dominated school. But I would always return home and I always felt grounded by my grandparents who brought me up predominantly. That speaking the language was a priority. And I think that's really set the scene of understanding and accepting culture. And tradition. There's lots of different traditions in the Pasifika world, of many of which we uphold, and I think it's upholding tradition for many years to come, generations to see that this was the start of their sort of journey as well. A bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's how I sort of my gut feels like it is.
And you grew up singing in church, right, in the 90s. How does that early musical foundation interact with the more refined discipline of opera as a more traditional classical art form?
If you know anything about Samoans and White Sunday, and you're a child or anyone under the age of 30, you have no choice. Your parents say sing, you open your mouth. Your parents say put your tie up, you put your tie up. So I was thrusted into that world at the age of 3 when my grandparents taught me a hymn, a very traditional hymn, number 92 in the Samoan hymn book. 3 verses, verse and chorus, and so on and so forth. And I sung this off by heart at the age of 3. And from there I felt like that's where my musical journey started. My granddad played organ for the church. My uncle played piano for the church. So we were always surrounded by the opportunity to sing, whether it's solos or in harmony. And so where that's translated now is it's sort of no surprise to my family that I've gone down the path that I have in terms of singing. I did dabble in a bit of piano and played for the church for a bit, but the success that I found in singing in particular has definitely trumped all that time. I guess when you look at it from a larger context, like the White Sunday stage is no different to the operatic stage. We're on there telling stories, albeit biblical mainly. We're on there performing to our best ability. We're on there expressing oneself, characterization. It's no different to me portraying, say, the character that I'm singing in this opera, the architect of a maze under the control of an evil person. So the parallels, again, pretty similar, and it's just in a bigger context, bigger stage.
What about as a Samoan artist, do you feel any weight or pressure or responsibility at all to expand the cultural representation within classical music more generally? Historically, obviously, very Eurocentric.
I probably used to. Even during university days, there'd be a number less than the numbers on your hand of Pacific people or Māori people in the classroom, and then less so in the performing arts space. So in terms of pressure, I felt it in the fact that I've got to represent and I've got to do well for my people, for the Samoan culture, for the Tongans, or for the Pacifics, and it was never like a personal vendetta, but it was more like there was like phrases would be like, oh, Pacific Islanders can really sing, or it's a natural ability. Take Solomeo as an example, really amazing singers, also deeply grounded in the Methodist Church. But my personal journey was not so natural. I'd probably argue that I had to work really hard to get to where I am, and that didn't feel natural, and that was probably my own internal pressure. On the wider scheme, as a Pasifika person, nowadays not so much. The world's changed, and especially New Zealand, like the avenues in opera or classical music doesn't just it's not limited to just singing. There's a number of amazing violinists, classical pianists, cellists, teachers, vocal coaches as well, who really don their heritage, Māori or Pacific. And so I think that's helped relief if there was any pressure. But it's sort of normalizing that, yes, it is a very Western culture of classical music and opera, and maybe a bit of a divide, but we've come to a point where it's quite accessible now, and it's been celebrated that people are picking this up. So not so much anymore, but I would probably have to say, if you asked me 10 years ago, I may have said yes.
On that note, do you think people underestimate the breadth of what an opera singer is and can be? Or not even just an opera singer, but a banker, a coach, a community man?
Yeah. Oh, yes, 100%. There's always a perception, like you go to the movies, you just see the end product, but what people don't realize, and again, sticking with opera space, operas are a lengthy process, and it's a lot of bodies on stage to coordinate, a lot of time schedules. So there's a lot of hard work that goes in the background, obviously, to put on a really good show and a perfect opportunity to see great singing, great music live. So the underestimating part is that everyone can sing and everyone can do it. And I think once you get a little bit of context and understand that some certain repertoire are more suited for particular voices, then you can kind of understand just how niche it is. Maybe another parallel would be like the All Blacks, for example, playing this Saturday, but you wouldn't have a lock who's maybe number 4 or 5 playing out of the wing. It's just not the same. But when you sort of understand their role and our role as singers, then you can really appreciate when they open their mouth, man, that's probably taken a long time to get there, and it's probably taken a lot of internal characterization of who they're meant to portray on stage, a lot of hours spent in rooms like these just by yourself, going through your notes, understanding the composer's sort of direction, then understanding the director's directing. So yeah, there's so much that happens on the back end. And in the banking world, I hand on heart work in the community and school space, but when they see ASB, they just think bank, and they just think ATM, home loans, how can I get approvals, or who do I know to support KiwiSaver? All good and well, absolutely. I could connect people to the right people, but in terms of perception, they just see a bright yellow flag. That's okay, but it's nice to play in a space where my main role is about education and uplift on financial well-being.
What have you learned about leadership that informs your artistic roles, but also your role in the workplace and in communities?
I would say when it comes to leadership, it's not something I've actively put my hand up. I've landed in leadership in a lot of things. I've landed roles which require you to be brave. I've landed in positions at work which have people to look after. So I am a people leader. I've got a team of 19 across the country. And then I just landed in coaching because I loved the sport of weightlifting, that I wanted others to feel empowered that they can also look at a barbell and not shy away from having a go. So leadership to me was never like first choice. It's just something that's come about and you've just got to grow into it or go with the flow. I would still today not consider myself like a strong leader, but I'm able to step up if required, and that's totally fine. I have leaders of my own who I look up to, and I feel like that's the difference. That's how I would measure. That's the level of leadership that's required, and this is where I sit. But at the same time, I'm grateful and always humbled by the people who look up to me as a leader. You just always want to hope that you do the right and say the right things. And in order to measure, like, if you've been a good leader, is you have other leaders come after you and sort of share that they learnt this from you.
Also, on that note, in terms of inspiration, do you have a single source of inspiration? And what is that? Is it your children, your audiences, or your community, or is it more of a mixture?
I've got a number of resources which I lean on for inspiration. Family, my family connections, my granddad, my late grandfather, who was sort of the catalyst of all my musical abilities. He introduced me to piano, introduced me to singing. And then, my kids, as you say, I look at them and I see how much I want to do for them. And so I always want to be brave for them. I always want to sing well for them. I want to perform for them. And I want them to see, that's my dad on stage. Like, I'd love, not that they'll ever say it, but I want to sort of know that maybe they'll say that. In terms of the community space that I work around and work in, just the need to, some people need to be handheld, and some community groups just thrive off seeing as believing. And so I feel like I draw a lot of inspiration to be good because that's what's expected of me. And then probably in the workspace, there's a number of leaders and inspirational figures, even within banking. But I'd probably just have to say my direct people leader. I've learned a heap of how to balance. We work in a really amazing space of work, flexible working, right? So it's and again, probably knowing that he's a parent, can understand what I'm going through with a young family. So it's just knowing that we're not the same person. We don't come from completely different backgrounds, but we get each other. And so I'm grateful that I can also, use that and pass that on to my team, that I can hopefully be a good leader for them. So draw inspiration everywhere. Even my gym are a lot younger than I am, but they're so raw and authentic that they sort of work hard with a chip on their shoulder to prove a point, and I really enjoy that because they just tell you like it is, and they're quite infectious in terms of what the community work that they're doing, and that's quite something that that's initially what drew me to the space, was how deeply embedded they are with them. Ensuring education is prioritised in schools and the youth in Manurewa and South Auckland. For low decile or low income families, they get the needed support when they need. So things like that. There's so many things to lean on when I am looking for motivation.
With all these different roles that you inhabit, Joel, do you see your life as a little bit like a giant Jenga puzzle where if you take a single piece out, the whole thing would maybe collapse?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the latter, taking a piece out, I would probably collapse, but it's because it's all I know. I think forever and always since high school, I've always been this overcommitted person. Would try and dabble in all the sports, to try and dabble in all the performing stuff, and then try and juggle, the academic side. It's no different now. I'm trying to juggle, like you say, fatherhood, jobs, coaching, singing. If you were to take one away, I'd probably answer that in stages. Like if you took it away right now, I'd probably stick with banking, just given cost of living, everything needs to sort of keep going, need to make sure the girls, my daughters, are well looked after. So I would happily make sure that I'm working for them. If you ask me in 10 years when everything's sort of, if the mortgage was paid off, I'd probably just keep weightlifting because I love it. Like I absolutely love it. I did get asked one day, if you had to pick singing or weightlifting, which would you pick? This was like 5 or 6 years ago. And I said weightlifting. And they're like, really? But you're really good at singing. I was like, but I really want to be good at weightlifting. And I just, so I love everything I do. So if you did take a piece off now, I'd probably crumble.
I think passion has to come into it
Yeah.
too, right? It's like you have to love it to do it
Exactly.
in the first place.
And unfortunately, I've split love 4 ways. So it's possible.
Yeah, the constant juggle.
For sure.
I think finally, Joel, you might have brought a creative object in
Yes.
from your life to share with us today. What is it, and why did you bring it in today? Or you have your phone here.
It was a little bit large to bring. I'm not sure which camera this one here, but this right here is my postgraduate diploma certificate. And yes, it's probably the most expensive piece of paper I've ever owned, and that's why it's framed. But it represents literally everything that you see in front of the person that I am. Started here, and before it started there, this was never on my agenda. University as a whole, it was never a thought process. After school, my next step was get a job, and just my passions at the time were barbershop and helping the community. So I wanted to be a firefighter.
Oh, wow.
But Dilworth, my school, had me in choirs and had given me so many singing lessons. They said, why don't you just have a dabble and, audition for Otago? And if I didn't make it, wouldn't have gone through. And if I made it, go through with it. So obviously made it through. When I graduated, it was the first grandchild in our whole family to go to university.
Wow.
So it was a big step. Oh, I'm actually getting teary.
Oh.
But because of that, I met my wife at university. I have the life I live now. I learned so many independent skills. I got friends all over the country. They really all combined to make me who I am. Like, this was definitely not on the agenda, but because of it, I am this person of Joel Amosa in 2025 and beyond. And so I'm forever grateful to my upbringing and everything. But the one sort of milestone that sort of sets the scene is graduating, because if it weren't for that, I don't know where I'd be.
That is very profound. Very, very, very profound. Thank you so much for coming in today, Joel, and for this chat. I really appreciate it.
Most welcome. Thank you for having me.
From the stage to the gym, the bank to his community, Joel reminds us that creativity and discipline aren't opposites. They can fuel each other too. Thanks for joining me on Articulate. If you want to listen to more chats with artists, find our episode archive on YouTube at thepost-nz or at thepost.co.nz/articulate. I'm André Chumko. See you next time.